All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem Kakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples for his younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem Kakadash, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Shai. All right, and what I want to get into this morning, is dealing with thy visitation have preserved my spirit, and speaking of the visitation of Yahweh Shai and the spirit to us in these latter days. All right, because beginning with Elder Abba Bibbins, all right, High Priest Elder Abba Bibbins, well, Yahweh Shai, his spirit was upon him, all right, to teach. And that was the beginning of the spirit of Yahweh Shai coming to visit his people, okay, which is the hopeful elect of Israel, okay. This word went down to, King Masha, High Priest Ariah, okay, Elder Yahweh, all right, these great men, trickling down to apostles and elders of today, beginning with Elder Apostle Tahar, okay, the rest of the apostles, okay. That was Yahweh Shai beginning what? To visit his people. The spirit of Yahweh Shai entered into the earth and began to visit his people. And that's what's preserving us, man. He came the first time, matter of fact. All right. What Elder Albert Bibbins was John the Baptist coming back if you can receive it. We deep in the game now. If you can receive it. Okay. So let's go to the book of this is the book of Luke chapter 1, okay, in verse 68, okay. This is Luke 1 and 68, and it says, "Blessed be the Lord power, for he have visited, okay, and redeemed his people. Blessed be the Lord power of Israel, for he have redeemed, all right, for he have visited and redeemed his people." Okay, read it one more time. Luke 1 and 68, "Blessed be the Lord power of Israel," okay, our power, possessive, "for he have visited and redeemed his people." So Yahweh Shai, okay, his first coming, there was a Most High visiting, okay, his people through his son. Okay, the spirit was on, okay, Yahweh Shai, okay, and he came to what? Redeem Israel, man, beginning with forgiveness of sins. Okay, and the second time he's coming to redeem us back to rulership. Those predestined to be forgiven for sins, the hopeful elect, okay, which are going to be pardoned by their blood of Yahweh, okay, was what? It's going to make us be exempt from judgment. It's going to pass over, all right, the Pesach, all right. There's going to be another great Pesach, all right. It's going to be the greatest Pesach, the greatest passing over, okay, and we're going to be redeemed back to rulership, man. We're going to be redeemed, okay, back to our power. We're going to be fully forgiven. Okay? Lord will we endure to the end. Alright? So the Lord visited his people once. And now Yahweh Shai is finna visit his people again. Okay? For this great redemption. Now, when you go, let's see, when you go into this word visited, let's get it in the Greek and see what it says. Alright? Let's go into it.
G 1980 episkeptomai.
Episkeptomai. Alright? And it said, your definition B, it says to look upon in order to help or to benefit. Alright? The definition for visit in the Greek. To look upon in order to help or to benefit. You see? It says to look after, to have care for, to provide for of the Most High. Okay, so the Lord has visited his people with the spirit of Yahweh Shai. And that spirit of Yahweh Shai is benefiting us, man. We're walking into the worst time ever rejoicing, full of faith, because of the visitation from Yahweh, which is the comforter, man, which is the understanding. You see? So we're going into the worst time ever, man, with joy and faith, man, because of Yahweh has visited his people in the spirit. You know, we're just waiting on the physical visitation for the redemption, man. Okay? For us to be changed, for us to be perfected, man, for us to be delivered from judgment, man, to be passed over. Okay? So let's go here to the book of Job, chapter 10. All right? In verse 12. It says, Thou hast granted me life and favor, and thy visitation hath preserved my spirit. Okay, let's read this again, Job 10 and 12. Thou hast granted me life and favor, and thy visitation hath preserved my spirit. So the spirit of Yahweh Shai that has visited the earth through the teaching of the prophets, man, is preserving the elect. Okay? The spirit of Yahweh Shai, the comforter, is preserving us in these times, man, is keeping us, man. We're being kept, okay, by this spiritual visitation of Yahweh Shai, man. You know, and he only came to his people. That's why his people are only ones doing what you see us doing, man. Okay? Day in and day out. You see? True repentance is only coming of those, all right, whom Yahweh Shai is visiting, man. Okay? And there's only a remnant of our people that the Lord would come and visit. Because his people make up the temple now. That's why when you go here, let's get that in the book of Malachi. Okay? Let's go to Malachi 3 and 1. Alright, this is the book of Malachi chapter 3 verse 1. It said, Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And that's John the Baptist. He did it as John the Baptist prepared for the first coming of Yahweh Shai. He did it again. John the Baptist came back as Elder Abba Bivens to prepare the second coming of Yahweh Shai. And it will begin with the spirit of Yahweh Shai visiting his people, leading up to the physical visitation of Yahweh Shai, man. Okay? And it says, Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me, and the Lord whom ye seek shall suddenly come to his temple. Okay, Yahweh Shai, which he came to the actual temple in his first coming. Okay, but now he's coming to what? The temple, which is the elect, the house of David, the second time. Beginning with coming to us in the spirit. We're paying us a visit in the spirit. Okay, before what? The ultimate visitation, man, when we're redeemed. Okay, it says, and then the Lord whom you seek shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant. Yep, Yahweh Shai. Okay, because his blood was shed for what? A new covenant. You know, and Yahweh Shai's his first his first coming. Okay? Well, he came to be a sacrifice for a new covenant. He was the Yahweh Shai was a message from the Most High that the Most High was going to redeem his people, that he was going to be reconciled to his people under a new covenant, all right, at the return, the second coming of Yahweh Shai. Okay, because we're under grace as we await what? This new covenant. Okay, it says, whom you delight in, behold, he shall come, said the Lord of hosts, man. Okay, which that's Yahweh Shai. Okay, he has visited his temple in the spirit, you know, and he's getting ready to physically show up to the temple, man, which is the elect of Israel, man, the hopeful elect of Israel. That's the temple. Okay, so let's go here to the book of Psalm chapter 80. Okay, this Psalms 80 and 14. All right, this is the book of Psalm chapter 80 verse 14. It says, return, all right, we beseech thee, O power of hosts, look down from heaven and behold and visit this vine. Okay, and visit this vine. You see, it said, and visit this vine, man. Okay, who's that vine? We're going to get into it. It says, and the vineyard which thy right hand hath planted, and the branch that thou made it strong for thyself, man. And that's the elect of Israel. Okay, let's show that it's speaking of Israel. with the vineyard, but there's a remnant, okay, of the vineyard of Israel, whom the Lord has made strong. Through what? Yahweh shot. Okay? Isaiah 5 and 7, for the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah his pleasant plant. And he looked for judgment, but beheld oppression, for righteousness, but behold, they cry. You know, this was addressing wicked leadership, okay, which was oppressing Jacob at that time, okay. But then you had the Lord made the point that the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, man. So that's the Lord's vineyard, okay. And it said with, matter of fact, I'm gonna read Psalms 80 and 15, and then we'll get that. Ratazar in this is a book of Psalms, chapter 80, verse 15. It says, "And the vine," it says, "in the vineyard which thy right hand hath planted, and the branch that thou madest strong for thyself." Okay, that vineyard, Israel, okay, which thy right hand planted, Yahweh. Okay, he's the beginning. He's that vine that the nation is attached to. Everything is attached. All Israel, all right, the elect at this time of Israel is attached to what? The true vine, Yahweh. Okay, so it said, "Come visit thine vine." All right, and it says, "In the branch that thou made it strong for thyself." Okay, and you go here to Second Esdras chapter 9, verse 21. It says, "And I saw and spirited greatly, and have kept me a grape of the cluster, and a plant of a great people." Okay, and the grape of the cluster, because you have a cluster of grape. Well, the Lord said, well, it's a grape of a cluster because of the people of Israel, because we of the same people, just like a grape is, just as you have the same, all right, fruit amongst one cluster, amongst one vine, because every vine produces what? The same fruit. Okay, but of that vine, of that vineyard, there's a remnant, okay, whom the Spirit of Yahweh will visit in these latter times, okay, and make us strong to endure until his second coming, man. You know? And it says, "And I saw and spirited greatly, and have kept me a grape of a cluster, and a plant of a great people. Let the multitude perish then, which was born in vain, and let my grape be kept, and my plant, for with great labor have I made it perfect." Okay? Because if we're of the elect, man, the Lord, the Lord is laboring, you see, and working on us through afflictions, through these teachings, through this word, through these captivities, where the Lord has been laboring on the elect all the way to perfection, man. Everything that we've been through, if we of the elect, remember if we was of the elect, all right, we was the elect before the foundation of the earth. So everything we went through on the earth was the Lord laboring and building us, okay, to be perfected in these last days, man. Okay? The Lord had a plan the whole time. And this, when you understand, as we understand the Lord's will more and more, his plan from the beginning all the way into now, it makes sense. You see, a lot of people offended at, okay, certain, random situations in the Bible because you don't understand the whole thing. You don't understand what the Lord's been doing before the earth was created, man. The Lord had righteousness in mind. Okay? For his people. He had a blessing for his people, an eternal blessing, man. Okay? The Lord didn't just conjure up the blessing of the kingdom and immortality and us being changed in the new covenant. He didn't just conjure it up on the whim. No, man, it was already established from the beginning. But we had to go through these processes, man. And that was the Lord laboring and making us perfect, man. Okay? And in the latter days, he sent his son to what? Visit his people. Okay? To visit their remnant, their vine. Okay? Verse 80 says, this Psalms 80 and 16, it says, "It is burnt with fire, it is cut down. They perish at the rebuke of thy countenance." That's the Lord pissed with us, man. To where he just destroyed us as a people. It said, "Let thy hand be upon the man of thy right hand, upon the son of man, whom thou madest strong for thyself." Yahweh Shai. He had to be the first one to be perfected. Okay, and get it right. And he did that as Yahweh Shai. So Yahweh Shai, that was our example, okay, for that path back to glory, man. You see? So Yahushua had to come, and he had to be perfected through, through the labor of the Most High. All right, and Lord we're following, okay, that path, okay, back to glory, and we're being, all right, perfected through the labor of the Most High, man. It says, so will not we go back from thee. All right, we'll never go back, because we're going to be changed, and we'll never go back to, being a no people, okay, to being mere mortals in the earth, man, slaves to heathens, man. We'll never go back to that, man, in rebellion to our power, okay. We'll never go back into that. I read this in the NLT. Then we will never abandon you again. Revive us so we can call upon your name once more, showing you that's part of us being revived, having the names. 2026, man, and if someone's not teaching the name, call themselves an Israelite, they're not revived, man. They're the walking dead with fringes on, man. So a lot of you Israelites are walking dead with fringes on, man. Okay? Verse 19, it says, turn us again to yourself, O Lord, power of heaven's armies. Make your face shine down upon us. Only then will we be saved. Okay? So the Lord is allowing us to be familiar with him again. Because his face represents his knowledge, his wisdom, his understanding, the comfort of the scriptures, man. So the Lord, through the visitation of the Spirit of Yahushua, is allowing us to draw near unto him again. Okay, as we come into the worst time ever, but it's also going to be the best times of, all right, for the hopeful elect. So that's the point. Lord will, you brothers, all right, and if you sisters edified. To the next time, I say shalom, kwam yashala, abal soon, shalom.